We are experiencing an explosion of grass growth here on the grass-fed homestead, which means we need to get some sheep to eat this. In an attempt to revitalize the pasture I'm standing on right now, last summer we brought in our American Guinea Hog pigs and moved them through this pasture, rotating them through with electrical fencing. This stuff right here, all this green, is the early stages of knappweed, and this entire pasture on this side of our property was covered with knappweed. So we brought in the pigs, and the pigs did a couple things. One, they rooted up the soil and exposed the roots of a lot of the knapweed, and they ate the roots, destroying the plants, but also they deposited a lot of nutrients into the soil with their manure and their urine. I left the pigs in their paddock for a week before moving them to the next one. When it was time to move them to the next one, they left completely turned up, tilled up soil with all the tilled up exposed earth mixed in with all the new fertilizer in there. It was a really good environment to get seed germination and start growing some of the things that are going to be better for our sheep to eat than knapweed. So I sowed a combination of a fall or winter rye, because I did this in the fall, and also vetch. So that's a legume, it's higher in protein, it's really good forage for the sheep. So this is what the paddock looked like when I first moved the pigs onto pasture. This is what it looked like when I moved the pigs from that paddock to their next one. And I'm going to show you what that paddock looks like now, almost a year later, after we threw down the seed. Check this out. So this big stocky stuff right here is the rye, and as you can see, it's growing so aggressively that it's already going to seed. When it goes to seed, the grass part of it gets really, really stemmy, and it's lignified basically and less palatable to sheep, but the sheep will still definitely eat these seed heads off. Down here, this is the vetch. This will give a nice, beautiful purple flower when it gets to maturity. But again, this is a legume and will provide a good source of protein for the sheep. And just for perspective, this grass is almost up to my waist, just below my waist. And of course, that's only the first paddock. There were multiple other paddocks where we had the pigs, where we've had the same results. Check this out. So pigs were in paddock 1, and then they came on over to paddock 2, and you can clearly see where that paddock was. And then from here, we pushed them all the way down the field, and I'm gonna just step to the right a little bit, and you'll see the line where the fencing left off. You'll see that line right down the middle there. This is one of those circumstances where it'd be really nice to have a drone so you can see the aerial overhead shot. So here's more paddock, and you can see right here, this is where the paddock ended and a new one began over here. You can just see where that fence line was. They're perfect squares all the way down. This is where the pigs ended in November, right under that tree there. So over here, pretty awesome growing grass. Over here where the pigs were not, lots of knapweed. And to be fair, in this really thick, lush grass from where the pigs were, there is still some knapweed. There is some knapweed leaves growing right there, but the vast majority of it is gone and it's been replaced by rye and vetch. This rye is an annual. This is just a temporary grass that I knew was really thick, hardy, and it's gonna come up in cooler temperatures that we have here in northern Idaho, but it's not the long-term solution. We're gonna have to move to a perennial grass to fully establish this as pasture. Our broilers are finally out on pasture too. They're in our Saskovich style chicken tractors, and they are really enjoying this explosion of grass as well. Even though the pigs weren't over here, we had our broilers come right through here last year. So there was a lot of fertility in this. Our grass growth in this area was really significant. I've been bringing the chickens through here, and of course they've been taking down a lot of that grass. And it looks like we have somebody that slipped out the back here. But the broilers aren't the only ones who should be enjoying this awesome lush grass. I think the sheep are a bit envious, so we're gonna work on getting the sheep out on it. Behind me here this way, the pigs were not over here on this side of the pasture at all. This was just grazed by the sheep for the last 2 years. Though it's not as significant as the growth that we see over by where the pigs were, this grass is no joke either. This is just a few inches shy of my knees here. This is pretty nice. The only problem with getting the sheep out on pasture now, which is what I want to do because we definitely have the grass growth for it, is we have all these little lambs. It was early June last year before our pasture was ready to turn the sheep out on it, but it wasn't a problem because the lambs that we had last year were born much earlier in the year, so they were much bigger by the time they were ready to go out on pasture. These lambs are almost a month old, so they're much smaller, and they will be able to get caught in the electric fencing if they try to go through it. Not good. But I do have a plan that I hope is going to work. Instead of just using one electric fence to form the boundary of the paddock, I'm going to use two and just stagger them just a few inches off of each other so it cuts the gap in half between the squares and the electric fencing. I will show you, and hopefully that'll make more sense when you see it. I have the first fence up. Now I'm going to go grab the second fence and show you what I'm talking about. This gap right here to here is 12 inches, and at this vertical interval, I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty confident that the lamb isn't gonna slip through there. However, they will, not understanding electric fencing or any fencing really for that matter, being so young, they might try to stick their head through there and get caught and tangled and repeatedly shocked, and I would really like to avoid that. So the plan is to stagger this about 6 inches off of this one. That way I'll have a vertical strand every 6 inches, one on one fence and then one on the other, instead of having a 12-inch gap. I'm hoping that'll create a visual deterrence to the lambs, seeing a much smaller gap that they know they're not going to be able to fit through, so why bother? At least that is my hope. The double fence is set up, the energizer's installed and ready to go. The only thing left to do now is to put the sheep on grass. This is my favorite part of husbandry, putting the sheep on fresh grass. And it's especially cool when it's the first time of the year doing that. I'm really excited. 1, 2, 3! I've seen a couple of the little lambs get shocked, and they just jump right back like they're supposed to. So I think this fencing idea is working, at least for now. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. In the meantime though, I'm gonna let our yearlings out and let them join the fun. Come on, Blue. Come on, Willow. Come on, girls. There you go, Blue. Hey, buddy. Come on, Willow. Come on, girl. Good girl. Good, Willow. Connie told Willow to stay away from her baby. Mother and daughter reunited right here, Connie and Maggie. So far I'm calling this a success. Everything's gone really well. It's a simple move. It's right outside of their winter corrals, so it's just opening a gate and letting them go right out, commingling. They still have access to the water and shelter in the corral. They'll just go back in there this evening. I'm going to continue to watch the lambs and make sure this goes well, and if everything goes accordingly, then I'm going to look at getting them out on that really crazy wicked ryegrass so they can eat some of that before it just completely goes to seed.